a situation where we just seen Kyrie's excellence against a Philadelphia 76ers team dismantle James Harden, dismantle that defense, was locking up James Harden majority of that game. He wanted to guard James Harden. He put himself, it's like, I'm guarding James tonight. And did a phenomenal job. The brother only had 11 points the entire game. And then he had like a calf injury. He had to wrap his calf up in the game. I ain't trying to hit none of that. Listen, it is detrimental to the Nets that this tandem is working, but at the wrong time. Just something that should have did happen 2 years ago. This should have happened last year when everything was going flowing and the guys on the court playing with each other, playing on the court together and stuff. This is like, it's getting to the point where it's unfortunate that we had to see a great showing and a great game like this because we're not going to be able to see it in that play-in game. They're not going to be in the 6th seed. They're not going to be in the 5th seed. They're not going to be in the top 6 seeds. They're 5 games away. So unless Cleveland loses 5 straight and the Nets win the rest of the season, there's no way they're going to be in the top 6 seed. Right now, Cleveland Cavaliers are on a winning streak. So are the Nets. But that's the biggest issue right now. This game there's a lot of different takeaways I have. One of them was Kyrie Irving, right? Kyrie had 22 points. He had 4 rebounds, 5 assists. I believe he had 5 threes that game, 3 in the first, I believe, or 4 in the first. He was lining up the court. His face, his demeanor was emotionless. The guy just wanted to kill out there. That's what he did. He went out there to destroy the entire court. He didn't care who was in front of him. He didn't care what kind of defense they were showing. Give me the ball. Get out my way. I'm scoring the basket. That's what kind of showing that Kyrie had. Number 2, the Philadelphia 76ers had an uncharacteristic game. They only shot 32% from the field. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Brooklyn Nets didn't play good defense, but 32% from the field is horrendous for any team. Even if the Orlando Magic are shooting, 32%, it doesn't make any sense to me. That's not their character. That's not their character. We've seen a lot of forcing plays, trying to get a foul call from James Harden, from Joel Embiid. They're trying to get majority of their points from the line. And if that's going to be their schemes, their methods moving forward, that's a problem. Because in playoff basketball, they don't call as many fouls. They let plays rock. They're not going to call that little pity pat foul you get when you don't run into the line. They let plays go. So the fact that this is what they're looking to do is an issue to me, and it's already playoff Harden already starting because James Harden is a guy who gets a bulk of his shots from that free throw line. The last and final take I have is KD. KD is just showing out. I believe this was his 4th or 5th game back. I forgot exactly. The guy's showing out. He's showing that he hasn't lost a step, even with a month and a half absence. The guy's a marksman. He's a guy that when he's motivated, that's the wrong time to see Kevin Durant. That he looked motivated on the court, talking to the crowd. He just out there balling, literally. And he don't care. He don't care what you're saying to him. He's gonna talk back to you while he's cooking, and that's something that's exciting to see. I'm so glad that I was able to see the referees letting Joel Embiid and KD talk back and forth without calling a tech. That was beautiful to see. And hopefully we get that in more games more often because we don't want to see guys just getting tech for trash talk. I really welcome more trash talk if it doesn't, escalate to a physical altercation. As long as they're not pushing each other, I feel like they should be able to trash talk. Those are my 3 takeaways right there.
My back is feeling good today, and I don't think I'm the only one that's having a good back today. That'd be Ben Simmons. His back is good, just like mine. Yeah. So basically, my biggest takeaway from this game is that the Nets exposed the 76ers for what they really are and who they truly are on national television. James Harden, do we need a reality check? This guy's the same guy with a 3-2 lead in the Western Conference Finals against the Warriors, where he went 12 of 29 and 2 of 13 from deep. Guy who's ineffective without the ball. Clearly, he lives at the line. The line is not there no more because they call the game differently. And he didn't even attack the paint like that. And even when he did, he wasn't getting the calls because he's not calling it no more. So I think this game was an exposing. Like the 76ers, this honeymoon, 5-0 with these 2 lethal stars. Okay, cool. No. Prime time in a game of this magnitude. This was a playoff game, right? This was a playoff atmosphere. Let's see how y'all feel in a playoff atmosphere. Because at the end of the day, I don't care about the regular season. I care about the playoffs. And this game was like the playoffs, and it was a reality check that came in my mail this morning from the mailman that has showed me that the 76ers is that same team that will never win a championship because they lack coaching, they lack developmental developing players. They like that. And they have a guy over there in Tobias Harris who was severely overpaid. Let's go to his contract right now. We're talking about 2 years, $76.9 million remaining on his 5-year, $180 million deal. This is the people that looked at Jimmy Butler and said, you're not the guy. You're not the guy. It's Tobias Harris. This is the same team. So I think the Nets, they do diligence and they expose this team. They played lights out defense. They was hustling to the ball. They was going after the steals. I mean, even Drummond. Yeah, we know Embiid owns Drummond, but Drummond held his own in the bargain, right? It was literally this whole entire offense, especially in the first half, was Embiid getting to the paint and getting to the free throw line. That was it. Literally. He got to the free throw line, I believe, about 11 times in the first quarter. That was basically it. And he went looking at his stats at the line. He scored 21 of the team's 51 points before halftime, knocking 15 out of 19 free throws. Where was James Harden? Nowhere to be found, per usual. Nets exposed him, bro.
My thing is, I think the biggest issue with the Philadelphia 76ers isn't coaching. I think it's the execution from the players. I think that's one thing that is understated for sure. Because especially with Doc Rivers teams, all of Doc Rivers teams outside of the Boston Celtics have shortened the players didn't show up. They didn't perform well. You know, we go back all the way to the Clippers days. There was games when Chris Paul wanted to give the ball to Blake Griffin instead of taking the ball in his hands and then winning the game. He gave the ball to Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin turnovers, missed shots, bad shots. It was all over the place. You know, and it goes beyond coaching because you can't. The coach can only do so much. He could draw up the plays, but he can't force the plays to execute. The players have to execute those plays. If they don't execute, that's on them. That's not on the coach. Now we fast forward to this team over here in Philly. Doc Rivers didn't go and tell James Harden to go shoot 3 for 17. He didn't tell James Harden to go force 5 to 6 missed layups, bad shot attempts in a row for trying to get a free throw. That's not the game plan. The game plan is to score baskets. He drew up plays for things to happen. Also, Tyrese Maxey was unmotivated to seem to score the basketball. He was hesitant. He wasn't even trying to score the basketball. And that's something that's uncharacteristic as him as well, because he's a guy who gives you 15 to 20 every game. He's a guy who's out there trying to score the basketball. So the fact that he wasn't even trying to score was something I was questioning. I'm like, so what is going on with this team? Because he's not trying to score. So what the heck is going on here? So there's a lot of different situations that happened last night that I don't think is going to linger moving forward. It was just a really bad game. And unfortunately, it was on a bigger stage against Ben Simmons coming back home. It was a really bad game all around. I think that's something that is not going to happen again. But the only thing that's going to be consistent is James Harden doing what he did, where he's trying to force free throws, trying to force the guys to get into foul trouble, trying to force guys to reach in, try to do different things, and they're not calling it no more. You know, you got to go out there and score the basketball. James Harden, you a guy who knows how to dribble, who knows how to get to the shoot the three, who knows how to do a bevy of things. Your offensive tool bag is so hefty. You could be a basketball player, a plumber, an electrician. You could do it all. You got all the tools. All the tools right there. But for whatever reason, he's going to the same wrench that don't fix nothing. He's going to the same broken wrench, just trying to get the free throws. He's trying to do all these different things, and it's not working. So it's going to be a bad space for this Philadelphia 76ers team if this is what they're looking forward to in James Harden. Another thing, the Nets had Steph Curry scoring 25 in the game. That's not his forte. That's not what he does. So I don't see him doing that moving forward. He's not a guy who averages 25 a game. He's a guy who averages 15, 10. You know, that's his game. James Johnson has 16. He don't score 16 at all. He's a guy who only scores 5 to 6 points a game. So there's a lot of guys who's excelling on that Nets team that don't do that often. And I know it's not going to happen during a playoff series because those teams are going to be prepared for Seth Curry out there in the perimeter, for Patty Mills, who didn't have a great game, who's mainly one of the marksmen on that team, didn't have a great game, and he's not going to be doing that out there. So there's a lot of stuff that on both sides were uncharacteristic for the good and the bad, and I can't wait because I would love to see this as a playoff series for sure. I think that would be amazing to see.
I would say this, right? I think, going back to my point about the Nets exposing the 76ers, because I don't look at it as uncharacteristic. I look at it as exposed, right? The last couple of years ain't no mistake from the 76ers perspective. And it's not all Ben Simmons, right? Like I said, I will flock to coaching in certain situations, late game adjustments. I look at that, right? Yeah, the players play the game, but at the end of the day, the coaches have a job. I don't think Doc Rivers is as, savvy and privy in certain, situations. Number two, when I look at this Nets team, they laid the blueprint out to beat the 76ers, which is heavily blitzing Joel Embiid and James Harden, allowing them to dish the rock back out and allowing Tyrese Maxey, allowing Tobias Harris and Tybal to just shoot it and see if they make it, because clearly they don't have the floor spacing like the Nets do with Dragic, with Seth Curry, with who else I'm missing, Patty Mills. They got that floor spacing, and they're going to have a lot of easy looks because of all the gravity that Kyrie Irving and KD is drawing. And that's just what it is. They don't have floor spaces like that on the 76ers, guys that consistently can hit their shots. So at the end of the day, I think if the 76ers really want to be that team at the end, coming out the East and representing the East in the finals, it falls on Tobias Harris, because he's going to have a lot of open looks. Credit to him. He hit his shots yesterday. He had 16 points. He hit his open three-pointers. He's going to have to do that consistently, because those looks are going to be there. And if I'm teams, I am bringing the blitz and I am swarming James Harden and Joel Embiid. And these other guys are going to just have to make their shots, and I'll live with that. I'll live with that. Especially after yesterday. I'll live with that. It was an exposing, man.
My thing is, I don't like to use the word exposed, because it's like this is the first loss, if I'm not mistaken, the first loss Philly has taken with James Harden. The very first loss. So it's difficult to say and say, well, yeah, if they exposed them and yada yada, because we have to look at the Nets. The Nets, this is probably the Nets' best game. KD and Kyrie played together so far. This is probably arguably their best game. You know, and this is coming from three seasons. 3 seasons together. So it's like
they haven't played much together, and I went through those 3 seasons. I went to, first of all, we can't even count 1 season because KD had an Achilles injury, so that don't even count. 3 seasons? No, it's not 3 seasons. That season doesn't count because he was never playing. He had an Achilles injury. The second season, they was playing together, and they looked like a fairly decent playoff team. I forgot their seeding off the top of the head. They wasn't like the number 2 seed or something like that last year.
I could check for you. I think that it was a number 2 seed. I believe so.
I believe they were the number 2 seed. So, you know, and then Kyrie Irving got hurt. Why are you checking that out? Kyrie Irving got hurt. And what happened after that? KD by himself, single-handedly, almost knocked the Bucks out. Yes, the number 2 seed. And they almost knocked the Bucks out with KD single-handedly. You see, in the playoffs, it's different from the regular season. In the playoffs, things start to slow down. Calls are not being made, right? Everything is slowed down. Same thing with the NFL and a lot of these sports. When it comes to the playoffs, things are slowed down. And it comes down to championship pedigree in most games, right? Chemistry is cool. Chemistry, more than likely you have an edge over the next team that doesn't have chemistry and doesn't have a set offense. Because when you look at the Nets, they don't really have a set offense. It's more a superstar-driven base. But in crucial situations, game 7s, game 6, if the Nets can make it that close, clearly the playing game is another situation. But, you know, looking ahead, seeing if they make it past the playing game, it's going to come down to championship pedigree. Guys that can knock down shots when you need them to knock down shots. I would not want to see the Nets in the first round of playoffs as a 1 seed. I'm sorry. That's bad luck. Like, I played this whole regular season to get the number 1 seed. I got to see the Brooklyn Nets? Hell no, I don't want to see the Brooklyn Nets, right? So my question to you is, do you think eventually that the vaccine mandate is going to change, allowing Kyrie Irving to be a full-time player in time? Because clearly, you know, there are steps and precautions that are being taken right now to open back up the city. I think, you know, not to get too political here, but I think people are coming to their senses and realize that business thrives when everybody's buying into business. When you're not excluding certain people, that's hurting yourself. That's self-sabotaging. So I think a lot of people, including the NBA, including Eric Adams out of his own mouth, want to see Kyrie Irving play basketball to represent the city of New York. And I think even though they may sit here and put on that show that they put on and say, well, it's not about Kyrie Irving, sports is about everything in America, right? I'm thinking they're going to change the rules some point to allow Kyrie Irving. May not be specifically Kyrie Irving based, but I think Kyrie Irving's situation will have a lot to do with Eric Adams' decision to open up the sector, the private sector, allowing Kyrie Irving to play full-time. And in that case, do you think if he's allowed to be playing full-time that the Nets are the team to look out for in the Eastern Conference?
100%. And you have to look out for the Nets being the team in the Eastern Conference for a bevy of reasons. You know, like I said, Kyrie Irving makes a huge difference on that team. It changes the dynamic of who they play and how they got to play moving forward. Because then we're looking at a potential Chicago Bulls versus Nets first round, or even Brooklyn Nets versus Miami Heat first round. So that's a lot. That's a lot of different things that you take into play, because it could kind of alter who could go to NBA Finals and alter how this Eastern Conference shakes up. The majority of the Eastern Conference, including the Cavaliers, benefited off of Kyrie Irving not being able to play those games. So I think Kyrie Irving on that court changes the whole dynamic. I think him, if he is allowed to play in time, it's gonna be perfect. The guy should be healthy. He hasn't played a full season. He come in. People would gloat that he had 50 points and he don't play a full season. Well, yeah, it's not like he's sitting on the couch eating chips until his name is called. He's practicing. He's working hard. He's in the gyms. There's a lot of stories of him going to these high school gyms, middle school gyms, and make sure he's prepared and ready for these games. He's putting in a lot of work, and then when he's in the game, he's cooking y'all. You know why? Because it's Kyrie Irving. He ain't no bum. This guy's talented. He's not that he's talented. He's a one-of-a-kind talent. So it's difficult for a guy, for anybody, to try to guard in front of that or stay in front of him. If that vaccine mandate ends, he gets in that court, it's going to be dangerous. Now you're seeing him for a lot more games. There's only 17 games left. On top of that, he's rested, ready to go, and he's ready to cook whoever's in front of him. Remember, the playoffs, including the finals, is like 20 games. That's fine with Kyrie.
Can You Dig It Sports Radio Network is here. Revolutionize the game of media. You dig?